Hey guys, today I'm going to be automating my garage door using a Shelly 1 Plus and automating it with Home Assistant. For those of you who are not familiar with the Shelly 1 Plus, this is a Wi-Fi controlled relay device. Lets you open and close a relay switch. Also has an input for a switch that in this case I will be using to read the status of a magnetic switch to tell whether or not the garage door is actually open or closed, and then actually closing and opening the garage door by just closing the relay. Just as a note, your garage door has to be simple for this to work. Easy way to tell is if you have a simple continuity switch attached to your garage door, like a picture like this. And also as a test, you can connect a pair of pliers across the two contacts on the left, and it should open the garage door or close it using simple just continuity between the two screws. This is going to be mounted in this 3D printed case that I made. I will show you guys this later on a computer model. It's a little easier to see, but it allows the Shelly 1 Plus to just be mounted inside of it like this, and then it can be removed if needed. It has flashing pins and also has a reset button, so I wanted to make sure that was accessible. I will be mounting that using double-sided tape on the side of my garage door opener. The magnetic switches then will be on the garage door. I'm going to wire those up so that they are closed when the garage door is closed and that they open when the garage door is open in any position. I'm going to be powering it with 12 volts transformer I bought on eBay, and also has a connector that just lets me take two wires and connect it to the Shelly relay, and I'll show you guys that later. But my 3D printed case also lets this just snap in. So then it has a little track for the wire to travel around, and it all gets connected together. The first thing I'm going to do is wire this up on the bench, get it all working here, and then I'll go install it in the garage door, and also get everything set up in Home Assistant, and I'll be showing you guys how to do that. So let's get started on the bench. Okay guys, I'm now over here on the bench. So I have wired this up here on a breadboard. I'm using 12 volts from a bench power supply, just to make sure I have good clean energy. I have configured it so that my relay, the 0 and the 1, are connected to my meter where I can read for continuity. So I'll go ahead and set that. I have connected the switch output to a button switch, which is what's going to trigger my garage door open or close. It's going to be triggered by reading the value of that switch. So I've got it set up that way. I am using 12 volts. As I said, I don't know if you guys can see this really well or not, but from this documentation you're going to use figure number 2. It shows you the relay is set up to the 0 or 1. The switch is then connected to ground, probably uses an internal pull-up resistor, and then when it connects to ground, that pin goes low, and then it knows that the switch has been activated. The line gets connected to ground, and the 12 volt obviously gets connected to 12 volts. So once we have it all set up that way, we need to go ahead and connect it. If you go to the documentation, the other documentation, it comes with two documentations. It tells you how to connect the embedded web interface. So you can use the Shelly app. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to go into the embedded web interface and configure it from there manually and use Home Assistant to actually control it. Thereby it will not go out to the cloud. It will be all in my internal network. So first thing I need to do, I'm going to go here to my phone, and if I go to the web site that it tells me to go to, nothing is happening. I'm actually still connected to my current home network, I believe. So I'm going to go in here. It's not connected to anything, and I'm going to look for the device. So here's the Shelly 1 Plus. In order to make this actually work, I had a VPN running on my phone. I had to turn that off. I also had to turn off mobile data. It seemed like it wanted to go to the internet if that was on, and it wouldn't actually connect to the device. So once I am connected to that network, then I can go open my browser to connect to the server. 192.168.33.1 is where you want to connect. So I'm going to go ahead and connect to that. This will bring this up, the web interface running on the little web server there. The only thing I'm going to do on my phone is I want to connect it to the Wi-Fi here, to my local network here. Once it's connected to that, then I can access it through my local network on my computer using its IP address. It doesn't have one until it's connected, so that's why I'm doing it through the phone. So I'm going to go to networks here. I'm going to go to Wi-Fi. I'm going to put in for Wi-Fi name, I'll put my SSID that I plan to connect it to. This can only be connected to 2.4 gigahertz networks, so that's something to keep in mind. You won't be able to connect to a 5 gigahertz network, which is pretty standard for these devices. Alright, so I'm going to put in the name of the SSID, and then I'm going to come in here and put in my password. Alright, once I do that, I'm going to click apply. Alright, it says my Wi-Fi settings have changed. Alright, it's trying to connect. Alright, it is connected successfully. Right here on the device, it will then tell me the local IP address that it's using. For mine, it's using 192.168.0.148. So using that IP address, I can now go onto my PC and connect to this device and do all the rest of the configuration from there, which will be easier. Alright guys, here is the web browser connected to the web server on the Shelly device. I haven't done anything other than connected to the local internet. I'm going to do all the configuration here now. You can see here that I can turn on the relay and turn it back off. I'm going to go into the network Wi-Fi. You can see that the IP address here does match the IP address at the top of my browser. So there's a couple of things I need to do for configuration. Bluetooth, I'm going to turn that off. The access point, this could be a way that some people could get into your network. If you left this open, they could connect to this and get in here and change things, or even maybe get to your settings. So you probably either want to disable this or possibly put a password in. I'm going to disable it for now. And then after that, I'm going to go over here and I'm going to set a timer. A garage door works with a momentary contact, probably like a second long. You're not going to hold it for very long. So when we turn the switch on, we want it to turn off almost immediately. So I'm going to change this to be 1 second and click apply. If that works, then I should be able to go over here, turn on the relay, and it should turn itself off after like a second, which is the functionality that we're looking for. One final thing I need to change in the channel settings, in the input-output settings. The Shelly by default, when the switch is pressed, it closes the relay. That is not the functionality we want. We want this to be independent. We're going to use the switch to determine if the garage door is closed or open, and we're going to manually control the relay or have Home Assistant control the relay through automation, one of the two. So we want those to be independent. So we're going to set that as detached, which is the functionality that we're going to want. Alright, after that we're going to move over to Home Assistant and start configuration there. Alright, here we are in Home Assistant. So the first thing we need to do is add our Shelly device. So we're going to go to configuration and integrations. We need to add an integration for Shelly, so we're going to click on add integration, search for Shelly. Alright, then we need to put the IP address of our Shelly device. So that is 192.168.0.148 for me. It will be different for you. Alright, and then here it is. It came up. We're going to add the area to the garage. And we're going to click finish. Alright, and here it is. It shows up in my integrations. I'm going to click on the entities here. We can see that the Shelly Plus here shows up. And this switch input is the input for the switch that we're going to be using to tell whether the garage door is open or closed. This is currently disabled, so I'm going to need to enable that. And while I'm here, I'm going to rename this to make it easier to work with. We're going to leave it as a binary sensor, but we're going to call it garage sensor. That way we can use it later in our template files with an easier name, and then we're going to update that. It says it takes about 30 seconds before it will show as enabled, so we'll say OK. We're going to also come up here to the switch itself, and I'm going to rename that to switch.garageDoor, again, just to make that a little easier to work with. Click update. Alright, from there we'll go ahead and start working on configuring our template. Alright, it's been a few minutes and the status of our binary sensor has now become enabled. So the next thing we're going to do is go ahead and define our template.
So I'm going to use VS Code's add-in. It's an easy way to get into the configuration and change it. There are other ways. This one is nice because it does allow for code completion. There may be other ways that allow for that, but this one seems to work pretty well. So first thing I'm going to do is go over to the documentation and discuss that a little bit. Here's the documentation for a template for a cover. So you can see garage door is actually used in here. There are examples. Here's one for a garage door. This one specifically uses a position template, so this garage door is able to tell Home Assistant the exact position of the garage door. Ours is going to be much simpler than that, so we're not going to use that, but we're going to use this as a model. If you come up here, you can see all the different variables that can be added to this template. We are going to use a value template instead of a position template. And as you can see, it accepts certain values. So opening, closing, closed, or open are the values that we're going to use. So we're going to go ahead and define a sensor to define that. So I'm going to go over here to VS Code, and I've already typed this out, so I'm just going to paste it in, and then we'll just talk about it a little bit. All right, we've already said that if our position of our switch is closed, then we're going to say that the garage door is closed. So if the position is closed, then the binary sensor is going to be on. All right, so if the position is off, then it's going to be open. So we're going to go ahead, you can see here in the else if statement, if this is off or open, then the garage door is open, otherwise it's closed. And then for opening and closing, we're going to also define the same thing. So if the switch is on, then it's closed. So if the garage door is closed and you activate the switch, we're going to say it's opening. Otherwise, if the garage door is open and the switch is activated, we're going to say it's closing. All right, that's a little bit confusing, but it's necessary for defining that. All right, so once we have that, then we're going to go ahead and set up our template for our cover. All right, so I basically took that and I modified it, and here is one that will work for me. You're going to define it as a template. The class is a big garage door, friendly name garage door. You can see the value template here. I'm going to use the states of my sensor that I defined up here. So that'll give it opening, closing, open or closed. And then we're going to define several services. We're going to define open, closed, and stop cover. All right, so the service that we're going to call on the switch is toggle, and the switch is going to be the garage door, and we defined this earlier. So that's going to be the same exact service for all three of these. The only difference is we're going to look at the state. So if you want to open the cover, well, it has to be closed. So if it's closed, it'll allow this service to be fired, otherwise it won't. For the closed cover, it's the opposite. If the door is open, then you can close it. I don't know that that's strictly necessary, but that's the way it was defined in the documentation, so I went ahead with that, and I think it might be nice for automation in the future. For our simple button example, it's probably overkill. But for the icon, which we're going to see on our button, I wanted to kind of do a little bit of functionality there. So if the door is opening or closing, so right when that momentary contact switch is open, we're going to show this garage alert icon. I wanted to be able to see that so you can get real-time feedback for whether or not the Shelly device actually received it. So you can see that there. Otherwise, if the garage is open, we're going to show the garage door is open, and if it's closed, we're going to show the garage door is closed. All right, so now we'll move over and set up our card. The first thing we're going to need to do is we're going to need to reboot our server to actually make this available. So we're going to go here into configurations, go down to server controls, and we're going to want to check our configuration, make sure that's valid. It's always a good idea to check that, and then we're going to go ahead and restart. All right, it says yes, I do want to restart it. This takes a few minutes. I'm going to pause recording here and come back. All right, our server has now restarted, so we're going to go over here and head over to the overview. We're going to add a card to Loveless. So the first thing we're going to want to do is come in here and edit our dashboard, and we're going to click to add a card. So we're going to add a button. We're going to go and we're going to look for the cover for our garage door, which is right here. We're going to add that and click save. All right, so there it is. All right, so this makes sense. The switch is currently open, So the garage door is showing as open. So if I come over and I push the button on my breadboard, it should update to closed, and it did. So that works pretty nice. Now if it's closed and I click it, then it should go to alert, and then if I let go, then it shows it is open. Alright, now if I close it, I'm going to click it, it's going to change to alert. If I hold in the button, then it's going to show as closed. So that is the functionality we're looking for. And the only thing really left to do now is to install it in the garage. But before I do that, I want to show you guys the model for the 3D printed holder that I created. Alright, so here's the model file. As you can see, it's got some detail. Here's where the Shelly device just slides right in. Right now I'm just going to leave it open. I could put a cover on this. That'd be pretty easy to do. For the plug itself, you can see that I've offset this. It's got a lip which will then hold it in place. But I kept this in lower so it can be pushed in here manually. I use PETG to print this, which is a flexible plastic. So this should be able to deform just enough to let that click into place, and it should not come out. We can see how that works later. Show you guys the bottom of that switch is sloped, so I did add a sloping here so you can see where this clicks. This actually is sloped in here as well. And like I said, I can make this file available if people want to print it, if that's what they want to do. And I can add links to the transformer that I ended up purchasing. If anybody wants to actually do that, just let me know in the comments. Alright, from here, we're going to get it installed, and then I will see you guys out in the garage. Alright, I've got everything wired up now. As you can see with the garage door closed, the magnet is now in contact with the switch. I have this wired up to the normally closed position. So this is closed when the magnet is in contact with it, and when the garage door opens up, it then opens the switch. If we go over here and look at the Shelly, we can see it is also connected and mounted on the side of the garage door opener. I have a power coming in here, and then wraps around and connects into the 12 volt here. Ground is on the line. The actual garage door opener is wired into the relay switch and connected to the left screws over here, which are the 2 screws on this garage door opener that have to be connected in order to open the garage door. I have the switch itself coming in and connected to the switch and also connected to the ground. As you can see, there's 2 wires in there. And if all of this worked properly, we should be able to test it and everything should work. Alright guys, I'm ready to test this now. I tried to do it outside and use the Home Assistant app on my phone, but the glare was too strong and couldn't actually see what was going on my phone. So I have the camera set up in the driveway, and I'm going to operate the door from my PC. Alright, so as you can see, right now the door is currently closed. The icon in Home Assistant shows it as closed. So I'm going to click it. It should change to alert, and then it should change to showing as open. And you can see the door is actually opening. If I click it again now, it should show alert. So the signal was received. The door should actually pause, which it did. Alright, so now if I click it one more time, it should change to alert and should start closing. The door status should remain as open until the door is completely closed. I did it that way intentionally. I want to know if the door is open at all. And so I only want it to show closed when it's actually completely closed. And all that seems to work pretty well. Alright guys, I hope you got something out of that. I really enjoyed making this video. I do want to note that there are other options for opening a garage door besides the one displayed here. I decided to use a Shelly because I wanted to see if I could do it, and I wanted to keep it on my local network. There are commercially available options. Some of them even connect to Home Assistant. So you definitely don't have to do it this way. But I really wanted to see if I could make this work, and I was glad to go through the process. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, please consider letting me know down in the comments. Consider subscribing. This is my first video, but I intend to make more videos, more like this, as well as other types of DIY videos out in my shop. Anyways, hope you guys have a great day.